September 20th. It's 7:25, and I'm Christy Boudreau calling to order the Hatfield School Committee, our September business meeting. For those who are tuning in via our YouTube channel, we want to apologize that we had some technical difficulties tonight, that we were not able to get an active link working for anyone who wanted to call in. We apologize profusely for anyone that cut out of public comment this evening. We would advocate that you send an email is an option, but also we have a meeting in October, and tonight's meeting does not have particular votes of consequence, so I think we're looking forward to hearing from you in October if we missed you tonight. Moving on, as there are no people in physical attendance, I think that closes public comment, and we will shift to our consent agenda. Mr. Wood and I are having conversations about consent agendas. In some cases mean if it's on the consent agenda and no one has a reason to pull something off of the consent agenda, it's just approved automatically. Some organizations choose to have one vote for everything on the consent agenda. And as we look at those options, and we're shifting this direction, so we're going to be modest and evolving. And so for this particular time, I just want to ask, does anyone like to make a motion to approve everything in the consent agenda, which includes minutes from August 3rd and 17th, a donation from Smith College, and a donation of jerseys for the boys soccer program? Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I think the consent agenda is adopted, and going forward, unless someone raises an issue, we will consider this a chance to call it off of the consent agenda if you have something you want to raise, and otherwise it will just be approved without a roll call vote or a voice vote of any kind. And with that, we will shift on to the superintendent's report.
Yes, it's relatively brief, but just some highlights. We are in our administrative meetings trying to look forward to, we're trying to build our assessment plan for the district. And so we have our K through 6 assessment plan pretty well formulated through iReady for math and for using our DIBBLS program, as well as work from Lexia and I'm missing one, DRA, thank you. I was going to say SRA. So we're looking at 7 through 12, or at least 7 through 10, to really make sure that we can identify students who are where they are in terms of their performance and continued performance in certainly in reading and math. And so we're looking at a couple of different components, and we'll hopefully have that firmed up sometime in October so that we can begin that process as well. We do have K through 8. We are using iReady Math, so that piece is pretty well firmed up, but we need to look at something for literacy. And if we want to continue writing, we can do the SRSD program, which we have started and is pretty well embedded in our K through 6 program. So that could grow up, I believe, certainly through 8th grade, maybe 9th grade as well. At the Smith Academy, we're still looking at security issues and trying to make sure that we have the best communication possible in the event of an emergency. We are updating our phone system. We had to do some electrical drops for some rooms, so that work had to be done in advance. So that's being scheduled now, and then they'll come in and they'll do the phones, and they'll be able to come and do the full building. Hopefully the electrical work will be done this week, and then hopefully next week they'll be in with the phones. We're doing the key updates as well. Both buildings, we had them looked at carefully. We wanted them keyed in a certain way so that our teachers would have options for getting in to rooms should an event happen while they're walking in the hallways, for example, because our protocol is that rooms should be locked at all times. And so that work is going to be done shortly as well. We have one firm that will be doing both buildings, and actually a firm that's done buildings in the buildings in the past with different components. So we'll get all the rooms done and keyed so that we have a better access. And we're also updating our FOBs access to all the buildings. So I believe certainly at the elementary school, everybody who had a fob got disconnected, and we'll reconnect when we reinstitute the fobs for that. And at the high school, I don't know that we disconnected anybody with fobs, not yet. So we'll do that in the event so that we can, again, secure the buildings, make sure that we know who has a fob and why they have access to the buildings, and make sure that we know when they're going to be in the buildings. We have a number of the open houses are on your calendar. Those are coming up. School pictures are coming up. Smith Academy this week, and HES is later in November. And then we have our early release coming up on the 23rd. We did put the time for dismissal on our calendar, so that was updated. And I've begun my monthly meetings with our school teachers association, which first went off very well. They're very happy, very excited about the new year. I like the continuity. We're going to continue. Are there questions?
Why don't you do your personnel report and then we'll.
Okay. So as I've mentioned in the past, Ben Snyder, our technology director, is resigning, and we'll be sliding into a contract with Suzer IT, which is a company that is doing the town technology. We will have a person designated as a technology director. I believe it's the same one that the town is using. So it's actually kind of a good thing because he'll be in the district for them and for us on separate days. So he'll be in the district longer. We'll also have longer help desk hours, which we don't have currently. And we will also have a tech person in the first 3 months of the contract. They will be in pretty much daily, again, shared with the town as well. So they can assess what the need is, and we'll be probably phasing that out to whatever the day amount we have work for them to do, which I think will be fairly minimal because our tech work on a day-to-day basis, given that we're mostly Chromebooks, is very, very minimal anyway.
But there's 24/7 hotline?
It's not 24/7. It's, I believe it's 7:30 to 5:30 or 5 p.m.
Okay.
So they have that available. But if there are things like, if the technology goes out overnight, they have a system to be able to be called on to know that and to be ready to get that up going first thing in the morning. Our BCBA recently resigned on Friday, and we have a plan to go forward on we've posted that, and we will get those. We already have services in place because she happens to be out on leave at the moment. So no services will be interrupted, and we'll be hiring to replace that. Matt Lester, I don't think was on the last report, but he got a job teaching, which is great. We always like to see our staff who are ready and able to go into the classroom. So he left really at the end of August, and we were immediately able to hire Iman Green, who's a Hatfield resident and really a wonderful addition to the program, has students in the school district. So that was really a find. And then John Walker, who's working in our after-school program, he actually worked last year for the other program as well. So he came back and is working with us as well.
Awesome. Questions?
I just have a clarifying question about the personnel report. The dates you have there, is that their last day?
No,
or?
that's the date when we got notified that they were resigning. Their sort of the official day. So, like Ben is actually here till officially till the end of the month, but Suzer IT is keeping him stationed here for the first month. of the new contract to work with the new IT director. So we'll be seeing him throughout. Ms. Most, I don't know what her last date was. I can't remember from her letter. I think it was to the end of the month because that's when her end of the leave was. So it'll be to the end of the month. But again, we have coverage already for that, and we're working to extend that coverage because that was through an agency.
I think it would be helpful to see the date that they're leaving, because I was like panicking that, wait, technology left yesterday, and if we know when the end date is rather than when you received the notice, maybe.
Sure.
I don't know if I'm alone in that, but.
I mean, I'm pretty impressed by some of these hiring timelines.
Yes, I
Actually,
am as
like,
well.
it's kind of nice to see, like, hey, we got a letter here, and boom, like.
Yep.
Speaking of, on the hiring dates, are those the dates that the offer was accepted, or did they actually start on these days?
So for Amon, she actually did start on 9/1. She started the first day of school.
Amazing.
And John was also here on 9/6.
Okay,
Nice.
all right, great.
So
Yeah.
are we down to just one vacancy aside from what's here?
So we just filled, because I didn't put it on here, but we just filled our SLP. And we're in negotiation of when that start date will be, because the person is currently employed. So, but we hope to have
Nice.
shortly.
So,
And throughout this, we've contracted Kate Krasner through her current company to come back and do some supervision of our SLPA, who has really stepped up. Lori is amazing, and to do some evaluations and meetings. So Kate's still been back in the building, but in a contracted role. So, as many kudos as possible to Lori Kratz. She's been wonderful.
well, congratulations to you all for having everything in the timelines. You managed to do it, and I will say, and stayed on budget, because that's not a small feat in today's hiring world. There are a lot of school districts around us who aren't filled. So,
Right.
Nice work. Other questions from the report? Okay, moving on.
What is
Dr. Driscoll?
next?
Are we going to look at
Going to
this?
do enrollment.
Yes, in fact, sorry, Dr. Driscoll, you know what, I'm going to ask to take this out of order. Can we talk about the enrollment numbers after we get through administration reports? Is that okay with
That's
you
fine
guys?
with
Is
me.
that okay with you guys?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so, Dr. Driscoll, sorry to interrupt.
And that actually fits well, because I think some of my.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I'm not going to read through everything that I submitted. We'll be talking more about MCAS and vocal results, I believe, in upcoming meetings. First glance, they look pretty good. The vocal results, especially, that's the school culture and climate survey that all 8th and 10th graders take at Smith Academy. Looks great. The trend that I really highlighted in this report was that of kind of declining enrollment. So we saw a drop in a couple factors. One, particularly large senior class moving on, but then some students choosing to go elsewhere. And so, seeing that happen and kind of seeing the numbers kind of creep down, we're not the only district in the area, certainly, that's dealing with that. That's kind of that's a this part of the state thing that's happening for a lot of schools. But I wanted to get a better idea of kind of what factors went into those decisions for families. Because we have students going a lot of different places. We have students going to Smith Voc, we have a number of students going to private schools, and we have a number of students who are choosing to go to other area public schools. And so those are kind of the three big buckets that are students, if they choose to go outside of Smith Academy, that's where they choose to go. So I tried to contact all of the families of students either who have chosen to leave the district in the last 2 years, so were enrolled in Hatfield, in Smith Academy, and are no longer enrolled in Smith Academy. So that group, and that includes both Hatfield residents as well as school choice students who were choosing to come to Hatfield now or choosing to go either to their home district or elsewhere. And I also reached out either through, and that was all through phone calls. We had that information, so I was able to kind of reach out through direct conversation to those folks. And we also, I was able to reach out if we had information, phone, telephone numbers. I was able to reach out to any family of a student who is a Smith Academy aged Hatfield resident and doesn't come to Smith Academy, regardless of when they have, if they never set foot in Hatfield Public Schools or if they left last year. And if we didn't have their phone information, I was able to send letters out to those addresses that we have through the census data. So that was the last kind of week and a half, 2 weeks doing that. Reached out to about 50, I would say 50 families. More than that of individual students, because some families had multiple children. And I was able to connect individually with probably 25 to 30 of them, so just over half, just over 50%, which is not a bad kind of response rate. And so, there, like I said, there were those three kind of buckets of places where where most students who choose to go elsewhere will choose. So I highlighted some of the trends here in the report. Most students, one of the biggest reasons for choosing other area public schools, private schools, or vocational schools, or that was mentioned by all three buckets, was just simply to seek a bigger school setting. And that doesn't mean that some mentioned options, some mentioned things, but really the biggest thing for that first piece was just more students, just to have a bigger student body, which is interesting. We'll talk about later. Most students, didn't come as a surprise to me. I don't think it's much of a surprise that choose to go to Smith Vocational do so because they're interested in learning a trade and heading directly into the workforce, which is the exact reason students should be choosing to go to Smith Vocational. And so that was pretty much universal with families of students that I talked to that attend Smith Voc, is that their intent was to learn a trade and they wanted to enter in the workforce. Not all of the parents necessarily wanted that, but the students who were going had advocated to that, and that was pretty much universal. The third trend was that a word that was mentioned a lot was the word options. So specifically for our purposes, that referred to, in kind of going deeper with the conversations, more elective options, so non-core courses that are offered. Extracurricular, so specifically non-sport options for students, and that was mentioned by a lot of folks. And more flexibility within the schedules by allowing for more academic options. That kind of goes with the electives. So those two pieces, the amount of variety we're able to offer academically, as well as the extracurricular piece. And again, specifically, this was mentioned a lot. Not sports. People felt pretty strongly about our sports, but for students who might not be into sports, what options are available for them? There was some surprise that we had so many kind of extracurriculars that we offer through X Blocks and some after-school options, and then the elective options that's an interesting nut to crack too as a small school, because the smaller you are, the fewer options you're able to provide. But you don't want to become smaller because of that, still, because then that gets into a cycle that you don't want to sort of enter into. Parents of students who went to private schools and other larger area public schools that were not Smith Voc, a number of them mentioned that they would like to see more AP offerings. Pretty universally, when they said that, they were also kind of surprised to know that to learn that we offered 7 courses in-house at Smith Academy, 7 AP courses, including computer science, which is really unique, and even more through our partnership with the virtual high school. So a number of folks were pretty surprised at that, which the fact that they were surprised is an issue, I think. The other piece that was mentioned that would be really important to highlight that we currently do, but not everyone knew about, was internships and work-study opportunities for our juniors and seniors, which again we do, and we've developed partnerships over years with area businesses that do that. Again, a few folks had mentioned that. That's really interesting. I didn't even know that was an option for kids at Smith Academy. So that's important information to know. Transportation was mentioned primarily by families of school choice students who had left, and that it was tough to get to Hatfield from wherever they were coming from, and that was mentioned by a number of folks. Also, that we don't have a late bus for students who are staying after school. That wasn't quite as universal as the school choice student transportation, but still enough folks mentioned it that I felt it important to include here. Number 7, and this is what I was alluding to before, the most interesting trend for me, and this was not like I didn't try to plug anything. Because I really asked 3 questions. I said, what factors may have gone into the decision that in your family to move schools. What would you like to see us offer that we don't currently offer that would, if you were currently shopping for schools, what would you like to see us offer that we might not currently offer? And is there anything else that we should consider as we're trying to appeal to as many families and students as we can in the area? That was it. I didn't try to plug anything. And I would say at least 90%, pretty much everyone said, well, I just want to say how great this piece was, or this piece was at Smith Academy. And I want to really highlight that, I listed here how great the teachers were, how they connected to students. That was almost every person said that, how positively their child had connected with at least one, and usually multiple staff members at Smith Academy. Every kind of bucket that I talked about spoke about the band program and how that, if that's not something they currently have where they are, that they miss that, and how well it had been developed. And every group, even the groups that the buckets that had gone elsewhere for a larger school, spoke about the small class size and individual attention that their students received while at Smith Academy. So, in one driving factor may have been that they wanted a larger school experience, more, a larger friend group to pull from, maybe a different group than they'd gone all the way up through elementary school and middle and high school with. But they recognize the benefit of having that small class size, of having that community and individual attention. So that's kind of a long-winded report. Practically speaking, for us right now, what that means is we are open to school choice until the end of the month. We're accepting applications until September 30th. So we've pushed a little bit on some of the pieces here that maybe we have offered but people didn't really know about, or express that it wasn't as kind of front and center as it might have been. The AP courses, the clubs that we offer, those kinds of things, the options that we do have, and the small class sizes. Other things we do well, the graduation rate, the college acceptance and attendance rate, things that are really kind of feathers in our cap as a school. And we've started both pushing that out through social media ads on Facebook and Instagram. I don't think we've tweeted yet, but we have ads out on Facebook and Instagram that are targeted ads to families of students of that age group, and within I think it's 30 miles of this area, so they appear on their news feed. I think it's called a news feed. And then we've also, the Northampton Radio Group has a number of radio stations in the area, and we've put out an ad through them as well. So the River, Rewind, 94.3, and there's several other radio stations as well that are going to be playing that ad too. So hopefully we'll drum up a few, a few more students that we can bring in through school choice, and then we'll work on keeping that information out there. Not just now. This is like a kind of a push till that deadline closes, and then we'll also look at how we can kind of what we can do in terms of a marketing sustainability piece to keep it in people's minds throughout the year, and then again towards the springtime when we open up and we do school choice again, what the timing is going to be to push it again at that time, because I think that's going to be an important follow-up as well.
Questions?
Standing ovation.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was a
Thank you.
fantastic
Thank you
report.
so much for doing this.
Well, it's important to know.
And for making weeks of phone calls.
Yes.
Because without information, we can't make better plans. So
Yes, sir.
from a marketing perspective, the problems we have are like the best problems possible, because the truth is actually really good news, right? It's not like we have to fix some misperception of something where we have a problem that we can't fix. Like, no, they just don't know, and we can educate them. They're like, wow, look at all these AP offerings. So let's see how we can close out the month.
Yeah, and we just started that yesterday. The radio piece. So I think I've heard it once now, and I've been listening. So I've heard it once, and I think I've heard it from a couple other folks that they've heard it too. So if you tune into those radio stations, you might hear it over the next couple of weeks.
Excellent. Anything else, team? Okay, we'll come back and talk about enrollment in a minute, but we'll let you guys finish up.
Okay. So we have also looked at I haven't shared with staff the preliminary MCAS data, not surprising, both for ELA and math. We would like to see more of the meeting expectations, but not surprising, we have a lot more of the progressing towards expectations, both, like I said, for reading and for math. But in anticipation of that, we started in August with staff doing I brought a reading consultant in who specializes in guided reading. So an understanding and knowing that really is strengthening up our Tier 1 instruction, and more importantly, focusing our small group instruction so that teachers are actually coaching kids as they're reading, is going to be a huge shift in what these results will indicate in future MCAS testing. We've started our new iReady math program. The consultant came in and did some professional development, again, also in August. He is available throughout the school year, and I have shared that with all of our staff and plan on bringing that into the school multiple times through our PLCs that we're doing. Connor and I had conversations over the summer about having the first staff meeting be just kind of like a nuts and bolts kind of thing for staff. The second one being more tiered to, or more targeted to, PLC and PD, so that we really can get teachers all on the same page around things that are pertaining to the curriculums that they're teaching.
Can you repeat that without in layman's terms for me?
Sorry, yes. I'm used to professional development or professional learning communities. So when we want teachers, thank you for that. I forget the jargon that we use so readily to throw out there.
We're all subject to that. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing, it's important to embed in the school day time for teachers to be able to have conversations about what are we doing, like this coming Monday's staff meeting is, how is the math program going? More particularly, let's take a look at all the manipulatives that we are expected to have to be able to teach this for the next 5 units. Who has them, who doesn't have them? I've already gotten feedback from teachers who want to have conversations with, how are other teachers doing this? I'm feeling frustrated about this, but I'm feeling really positive and encouraged about this. Can we set up some time where we can actually start to go visit each other's classrooms? I think a bigger understanding of how someone else is doing this might help me. Those are the kinds of things that we just never seem to have time for, that we kind of foresaw was going to be important to embed within our staff meeting time. So I'm excited to bring in both, we're going to do more work with Lexia and iReady and SRSD and guided reading throughout the entire school year to continually bring PD and have teachers having conversations about their curriculum and their teaching. Student engagement, family engagement, really excited to bring back the all-school meeting schedule. I haven't shared that publicly yet. We were working today on how to plan and show the events on our website, because we're trying to be better about utilizing that and having it be a place where parents are going for information. We're really cognizant of not only having them once a month, but inviting families in, but also to stagger them not only throughout the day, so it's not always at the same day, the same time. So they'll fluctuate between Monday through Friday, and it will be from anywhere from 8:30 in the morning start to a very end of the day start. So it doesn't impact the same special every day or the same teacher's prep times every month. And the movie night too. PTAs, we have a dedicated movie month as well. Our 5th and 6th graders are getting back into the buddy reading. In fact, they were supporting our teachers with iReady. We noticed that iReady's usernames and passwords are all numbers and letters, 7 or 8 long. So we decided that was a bit of a stretch when I was trying to go in to support one of the 1st grade teachers, and I'm like, why don't we get our buddies down here? So they literally were coached on not to help because you can't help with a diagnostic. But what a huge, relief to be able to have one 5th grader sitting next to a 1st grader, and then of course they're like, this is so much fun, can you come back? And they were all excited, and one of the teachers brought me in and like, we want to share, the 1st grade teacher, we want to share with you when you come in today how we thought the math went today. So I went in and they're like, we want to give up recess, we love math, we love math. So I was like, yay, I hope you keep saying that a few weeks from now when you're actually engrossed in the actual learning of it. But they were loving the assessment piece. We have some upcoming events. Well, then the rest of this is just kind of upcoming events. Our book fair is going on right now throughout the whole week. And we also have our open house this coming Thursday. And true to an open house, people don't really want to come in and hear me lecture about something. So it is truly just drop in anytime between 5 and 6. We decided to make sure we were coordinating that with the pickup after our after-school program is done, so parents weren't having to come back a second time for a later date. So our morning program, our box program is going well. I'm seeing kids out there when I'm coming into school running and doing laps outside. I've seen them running in the hallways. They're getting all kinds of energy out, and our after school program is running smoothly as well. So great start to the school year.
Questions?
And Friday is wear purple and
Yes,
white?
yes. Wear your purple, white, a Hatfield swag, anything that says Hatfield on it. Yes, First Spirit Day. Thank you for that reminder.
How did they settle on staffing for the aftercare? They were looking for extra help, I think, right?
They were. We've got 3 to 4 staff members. I think she was hoping for at least one more staff member one day when she only has 3, and I think she was hoping for a 4th. But yeah, if anybody has anybody in mind or knows anybody who wants to just help out for a couple hours on one day a week, I think it was Wednesday, she said she needed some extra people, or one extra person.
And how's attendance look or enrollment look for the programs before and after?
There's about almost 20 kids in the morning, and there's approximately between 30 and 40 in the afternoons.
Cool. All right.
Yeah.
Any feedback on the time of day being, I know we're stopping at 5, which was troubling at the beginning. Are we looking at extending that or hearing that it's working?
At this point, I'm hearing it's working. I do know that there were a few families who were like, that's still too early for us. I tried reaching out. I had a meeting with the YMCA that we were talking about busing. I called multiple times to our bus company. I'm like, I need an estimate. How much would it cost for us to bus kids to Jackson Street School has an aftercare program as well. Theirs goes later than ours, and they're already there because their school gets out earlier than us. I didn't get still trying to figure that out as far as getting an answer from our bus company.
And that follows for the half days as well.
Yeah, a half days would be trickier. I think the half days would, because ours don't coordinate with the with Northampton's. It would have to actually be at the YMCA. So we would have to figure out how to, first of all, how many people would be interested in that, and then how many people would be bused from here to Northampton's YMCA.
I think that would still be really worthwhile to work hard to see if we can get some options.
Some kind of option for the half days.
Half days are rough on families who don't have a grandparent in town who can pitch
Yep.
in, and even if they do, that's not always an option. So
I will reach back out to both.
please, and if there's anything the committee can do to be helpful, we would obviously like to be helpful.
If it's going to be a fee to do something anyway, what about an option for an activity of going to the bowling alley? Yeah, they take their bagged lunch from the school and they get bused to the bowling alley, and they have 2 hours of bowling or whatever it is, and an hour of, or a half hour of lunch. So that's 2.5 hours, which would put it to the end of school time. Maybe that would be a start for some families, or I don't know. I'm just like,
Yeah.
maybe.
Well, and the people who weren't available during the day might be available by the end of the school day. I don't know.
Right.
But you're still solving for staffing, I think, is the issue.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a big piece of it. I also reached out to Parks and Rec, and I know that they were supposed to be bringing this up at one of their meetings, but I haven't heard back either from them, so I can reach out again to Parks and Rec.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Bremner.
Hi. So I also pulled some sustainability numbers just for us to think about. Some of this data is from last year's data because we've had some shifts, but we do welcome about twice the amount of students into Hatfield, choicing into Hatfield that are identified with a disability, then go out. So we have, last year there was about 10 Hatfield residents that choiced out to about 5 spots. And we had about 18 come in to us from 9 places. And I know that we've added on a 10th district that students are choicing in from for that are students on plan. So it's always nice to just kind of unpack a subgroup to see if there's anything related to that. But it seems like we have folks very comfortable with the services we provide in twice the amount that are choosing to go elsewhere. We have added a sensory space to Smith Academy. So this is a need for students that have or will be transitioning from HES. And it takes away a barrier that would require conversations about placement. At this time, all of our students who are requiring an outplacement are in grades 8 through 12. There is some historic information I added to the document today, actually, so I don't know if that was ill-conceived or not, but our numbers of number of students who are outplaced is back down to the 2017 level or so. The past 4 years, it's been much higher. So we were able to welcome some students back, and we had a student graduate from one of our outplacements. And we've welcomed 2 tuitioned students into our Step Down at Smith Academy, Step Down at Smith program at Smith Academy. So we are starting that and still open to considering referrals to our STAR program. We've made some shifts at Smith Academy so that we have more choices related to wanting to stay in 9th grade. And this includes some co-teaching, targeted pre-vocational, vocational, and college-connected supports in our skills center. For student achievement, we have followed through with our dyslexia crosswalk plan from last year. Our reading specialist expanded Dibbles 8 through 6th grade. And actually, I just shared it with our middle school special ed teacher too. I didn't tell you that, but so because it does go through 8th grade. Dibbles 8 can go through 8th grade. So both principals went through our pre-referral processes with the staff, and we've started in with the pyramid program with our early childhood group. So this is in a simple way MTSS for pre-K, because preschool does everything anyways. They already are doing SEL and academics at the same time. That's just what preschool is. So we, as the K through 6 is taking on the literacy and math, our preschool is taking on the pyramid model and making sure that that is well defined. We completed our kindergarten screening before school started, and the pre-K screening will happen in October, and that aligns with our child find requirements. At this time, we were saying we were still working on RSLP, but I think that's resolved now. And I wanted to let you guys know that our ESPs have continued to voice satisfaction and a sense of appreciation for their new contract. That's something I've heard from multiple folks as they've come back. So I wanted to let you guys know that. And that's it.
Questions?
I'm just sort of curious about the sensory break space at Smith Academy. Can you, and I guess I didn't quite understand, you were saying it was taking away a barrier that would require a conversation. Can you just like explain what that space like looks like and how it would be used?
Yeah, so we have, now that we've built up our social emotional tiers at Hatfield Elementary School, we have students who have scheduled breaks. So they're identified through their behavior assessment or with work with their clinician, that there's certain times during the day they need breaks. This is consulted with the OT and the clinical staff. And historically, based on whom I'm looking at that is currently outplaced, meeting higher level SEL needs has been an issue. That behavior has been a piece of why students have required an outplacement. And so while we're building up these preventative strategies at HES, now we're sending that HES kids to Smith. We want to make sure they still have access to the supports they had, and we want to avoid a cliff of here's a whole new school and you don't have break and you don't have these other things. So we're wanting to make sure that our tiered SEL supports align vertically. And I think that's a piece to why we haven't been able to meet some of our older student needs historically. If that makes any sense.
That's actually really helpful just to understand. So like not only does this obviously support our students in a more robust way, but it actually can help us keep students in the district. 2 thumbs up.
Can I add something to it too?
Go for it.
And as well, I said, they're for scheduled breaks. And so during the time when it's not being used for scheduled breaks, that's often where we'll have River Valley counseling. I keep wanting to say River Valley Co-op. River Valley Counseling will come and they'll meet students in there who get their counseling at school as well.
Cool.
I just had a question about the K screening. Would parents be contacted with screening information, or that's just data that?
That's a Melissa question. I don't know how the screening, our benchmarks and screen, it's at parent-teacher conferences, right?
Yes, yeah, oh yeah, that would all be shared at parent-teacher conferences, yes.
Okay. So if we can revisit enrollment. We kind of talked about all that. And Mr. Wood, I added a few summary notes onto that sheet just so I get it's a very busy page. But it let us kind of track. Do you want to do this? Do you want me to do this? So administration updated the head count and where we are by class as of September. So we've been watching sort of where we were in July, where we were in August. And we knew that there were going to be some shifts, right? So things that we didn't know until the last minute. Dr. Driscoll told us about, students who were on wait lists, I think was one that really, I think that's going to be your answer, what happened to the freshman class, is that? So when all is said and done, I thought it was really interesting to see that the enrollment, so what tracks in the upper part of your sheet is looking at the same group of kids. So you can see in a particular, the class of 2035 or 2030, where they are from last year to this year. But in the summary notes, you can see where the school is holistically. And so HES enrollment is flat from last year, and the shift is really from a head count wise, not to say there aren't students that came and left in both buildings, but the SA enrollment is down 22%, which means the district-wide, we're down 9.7%. And there's sort of a recap of what the biggest contributing factors are. There's a 12 student differential between the outgoing seniors and the capped number of pre-K. So we know we can't take every pre-K student that might want in, we just can't fit them with the numbers you can have in pre-K. And the seniors that just left had 41 students, which is quite large compared to everybody else, all these classes behind them. And so there's 12 students there. There's 10 student decline in the freshman class. And I think, Connor, is that really, you want to speak to that class a little bit?
That is largely, by and large, when we lose students 8th to 9th grade, they go to Smith Voc. There are a couple of students that have opted, as I said, to those other couple buckets, either private schools or other larger area public schools. But we had a number of students who were on the waiting list who also did get in, both to Smith Voc or if they were school choice families from Franklin County to Franklin County Tech.
So the other thing I was curious about was the shift in school choice percentage. And so you can kind of see class by class what percentage of that class is school choice and how it's changed from the previous year to this year. And in a school composite, both schools are down in their school choice head count. And I thought it was, and so half of the decline overall from the district is school choice students, which is significant given that they're about only a third of our school population. So percentage-wise, we're losing more school choice students than we are Hatfield students. And I thought it interesting that if we added the loss of school choice students with that differential from the 12 kid difference between the senior year and the pre-K, so that's a big piece of it. If we add those two factors together, that's 82% of our decline. So keeping school choice students is a big piece. And so I think the next sort of learning for us would be, we don't know based on this data if this is a one-off or if this is sort of the historical trend that, you know, people choice in elementary and then choice elsewhere when they get to secondary schools because they're looking for a bigger program. So I think we have a little more work to do, but as we think about district improvement plans and whatnot, this should be helpful. And then Connor spoke to the whys. This just gives you the data. So comments, questions, things you want to look at next in this front?
Besides, like, I'm not sure who to address this to, but besides Smith Voc, which is just not something we're really trying to compete with, it's an appeal to kids who have that kind of a course laid out for them in life. Is there one school system or one that jumps out that is taking the larger portion of the remaining kids who leave?
The next I would say would be Frontier, the regional school, in terms of students going to public schools, followed by some of the area charter schools, PVPA, what's the one in Greenfield?
Charter school?
Yeah, there's Four Rivers. Yeah, but largely, after Smith Voc, it would be the Frontier district, and then also there's the area private schools, so Deerfield Academy and Bement primarily.
On the flip side of that, are there larger numbers coming to us from any particular district?
Mm-hmm. We get a lot from Northampton and Holyoke.
Oh, yeah.
I pulled up the school choice roster, but for places that leave, we also have quite a number that are Northampton as well, and some of that may be, parents may be sending their child to where they work, but our receiving roster. I know for myself, for the special education, we have kids from all over the place, but quite a few from Northampton in general, quite a few from Holyoke. There are several from Whately, East Hampton, a handful from Greenfield. But really, it's quite a number of places when, it's Hadley, Montague, Ashfield, South Hadley. It means there's a lot of schools where there's one or two kids from there, but the bigger ones are Northampton and Holyoke.
So I'm wondering, because in your report, Connor, you talked about transportation was an issue for school of choice families. I know one of the charter schools has locations where they bus in from. And I didn't know if that's something that we want to look into to see how conceivable it would be, probably for a fee. But if we had a couple drop points, it might make it easier for parents. Like from Holyoke, if there's a drop point in Northampton and that we're picking up Northampton kids and Holyoke kids and maybe East Hampton or Southampton, they only have to drive part way for a drop-off point. I don't know, it's just a thought that occurred to me.
And I think that makes sense. In terms of so charter schools are required to provide transportation to their students as part of their charter. I on my list for this week is to reach out to Hampshire Regional, to the principal there, because they do something similar to that, where they have pickup locations in kind of at the corner of Holyoke there, and at the corner of maybe Northampton. So kind of at the opposite sides of their town. My understanding in hearing about that was that it was primarily a parent group that had driven that and organized it and kind of made it happen. So I'll be reaching out this week to the principal down there to talk about that and how that works and what that might look like for us. And that way we can look at the feasibility here too.
It's a way to keep school of choice families with us and potentially attract new ones.
Yeah, for sure.
Clear a burden that somebody who isn't here yet. Yeah.
I'm just wondering if we had any insights into the 6th grade. I know like the more sort of dramatic drop-offs happened in Smith Academy, but there was a sizable drop in the 6th grade, and I didn't know if, I know some schools start middle school in 6th grade. I don't know if that's like a factor or if we have any information about it.
A few of those students actually went back to their home schools, and we had quite a few that were coming here from East Hampton and Northampton. And at that point, the family was like, it's too much to keep check, especially at that point.
And they start middle
gas
school.
prices. Well, that and the gas prices at that point were getting to be like $5 a gallon at that point and near the end of the school year. And then a few, it's we don't have a football team, even though we do co-op with Smith Folk for that. We do have some families that just want to be in a bigger group of students. They think, with their students are that much more involved with sports and feel like there's a better opportunity someplace else.
Okay. I'm sure as we talk about district improvement plans, the subject will come back around. Okay, so I understand there's a Smith Academy student report, but I don't know if you have that.
I do not have.
Or if we're,
I do not have it.
okay, so we will table that until next time. And next up, we need to take a vote tonight about warrant signage. So just reflecting back before the summer, we shifted from having 3 signatures to 2 signatures to give us some flexibility for the summer. The makeup of our committee is a little bit different than it has been the last few years, and availability to sign warrants has changed a little. We're also, I know Riley's doing a great job trying to give us a little more flexibility by having a longer window available to sign warrants, which she was awesome this last week. I was like, wow, we have days to do it. which was appreciated greatly. But we said that we would come back in September's business meeting and discuss if we wanted to keep it at 2 or go back to 3. So I would entertain a motion to put this onto the table for conversation. Or would you like to have conversation before we put a motion out? Feelings?
I will make a motion to require 2 signatures on warrants.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay, I open the floor for conversation.
I'm comfortable with that level of oversight, I think.
I agree.
Yeah, it seems like it's reasonable and more practical.
Does the district administration see any challenges with just having 2?
No.
I would only like to comment, though, that 2 works, but it isn't necessarily always the same 2. And when it isn't the same 2, every effort needs to be made to have them signed for Riley to get them in on Tuesday noontime. I don't think we want to run into issues of late fees or anything like that because we couldn't get in to sign.
So I did get sort of an enlightening look at what happened. Like after we sign things, it's not like the bill goes in to be paid. So Riley gets stuff in and then it has like multiple mail stops between so it's sort of like we don't have a big window for them to be paid within 30 days because they go to multiple other, like they get shipped across the state eventually. So that was a little like, okay, that helps me understand why it's sort of the urgency that we keep up with them that it is. I agree, I don't have a problem with 2.
And that definitely, it makes sense. It's helpful to know sort of that there's more to the process. It was also very helpful to have a couple day window.
I agree.
This time. So I know that's not always possible, but
When it is.
definitely for folks who have sort of inconsistent schedules, it's nice to have a window of time.
She's also available at 6 a.m., so.
I'm not
Yeah.
disputing that at all.
Yeah, I'm just adding that in as multiple days of 6 to, well, she's there till 2, but you're there.
Tell me when you want to be there. I'll
Okay.
stay open.
And if there's a way we can communicate with the committee so that people know we're in a crunch, I think that sometimes Riley sends an email, and if you're not seeing the emails, then we need to find a different way. So, okay, there is any other further conversation? All in favor of moving back to keeping 2 signatures hereforth?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous vote. Riley will be pleased. And a short budget conversation. Adam, did you want to kick that off?
Sure. Not much to discuss as far as budget or finances. One thing that's popped up is that there's nothing currently in the budget allocated just simply for school committee expenses, things like travel and fees, things for conferences, anything like that. I just wanted to open the discussion. Is this something that we need to address? Is it an issue, or do we need to try to set up any kind of funds for things like that? Wasn't an issue in the past couple of years when everything was remote, but not everything is remote anymore. So we just need to know, is this something that we need to address, or is it just kind of okay with not having anything allocated?
So we're not looking for a vote on this. This is a conversation for the committee. It would require a vote if we transferred funds, I believe, because the transfer would come through. So that's how it would be actioned. I think as budget crunches happened, this has been out of the budget at least as long as I've been on the committee, and probably as long as Becca's been on the committee. And the state mandates that we get some training, like we need certain numbers of hours of training. And for me, that training was free. I don't think this year it is free anymore because you have to attend a conference which has a fee associated with it.
And it's often quite far away.
Indeed it is. So I will withhold my commentary for last. If folks have feelings about this.
So I'll tell you, in the history in the past, there was always school committee conference and travel funds. And essentially, I was the one that took advantage of it. I was appointed every year to represent Hatfield at the annual conference. I was the voting delegate for the assembly. So I went every year for 16 years, 17 years. I did it. And then when I didn't go, I think it kind of fell off the budget line. I'm open to not going. I'm open to going. I am now a life member, so I can attend any event, and the registration fee is waived. So for myself personally, it would only be travel expenses. If any of you want to go, I highly recommend it. It is a wonderful opportunity to network and hear many different perspectives on issues that we face. You learn so much. I think it's worthwhile. I think that we as committee members deserve to have professional development to improve what we do. Doesn't have to be me. I'm not advocating for me, but I just think it's a wonderful opportunity if any of you are interested. But I do understand our budget is tight. So
And that comes out of the school budget.
it does.
So, I mean, I can certainly see putting a system together where it rotated, so it, everybody got their initial training covered. The challenge I have with a $0 budget on this front really comes from a diversity, equity, and inclusion perspective. That if we don't have a budget for this, it basically means that only the people who have the resources to get trained, because they can afford to do it out of their pocket. And I don't find that equitable. So to me, it feels like we should put something in. I don't think it needs to be that everyone goes to every conference, because I don't think we can afford that. I do think we could afford this year to put some funds in, and would look to make sure that we are covering particularly, I would first advocate for new folks having access to that, just because it is a chance to get some experience and to learn something, and to make sure that you're not paying for the time you spend here, to make sure that you're in compliance with state law. So.
As far as the charting the course, which Adam and I need to complete since the election, MASC is planning to do one local, possibly in January.
I look forward to that. I didn't want to drive to the Cape or to Canton, I think is the next one.
So I've been advocating for them to do something in Western Mass that isn't in Pittsfield, which is generally the option. They did do a last minute change of location one in the spring, no, June maybe. I think it was in Turner's Falls.
There was one in Northampton the week after the like the Saturday after the election, so 4 days later.
That's it. It was in Turner's Falls. Turner's Falls couldn't do it, and they switched it to Northampton.
Okay.
But it was so last minute.
Yeah, I found out that I was supposed to do this, like the following week.
Right. So they're hoping to do another one, possibly in Northampton. But even if it was Turner's Falls or Greenfield, that is
Yeah.
Better
I
than
can
the
do that.
Cape.
Are they definitely not offering it virtually anymore?
Correct. Which I think is a mistake, but a big mistake. Maybe our lifetime member can carry that message.
Advocate.
So,
As officer of our division, I've been pushing to have them come local. So I was told we would get one in January,
Okay.
so that it would capture the people that are elected in November. And they didn't want to do something in December because of holidays, so they were going to wait until after the first of the year.
okay. So give a think. If you have perspective on that, we can address it in our next budget subcommittee.
I would be interested too, and maybe you know the answer to this, of what, if anything, they do offer that doesn't have a registration fee.
I'm not aware of anything at the moment. I went this summer to one, and it was a few $100 plus room and board. I mean, it was.
Yeah, they hold a lot of things like in Marlboro, which is just pushing the edge of whether you really want to make it a day trip or not.
Okay. And with that, let's shift over to policy.
Yeah. All right. So first on the policy agenda is the disposal of property policy, which we would like to table until the next meeting. So if the committee is okay with it, I would like to just jump ahead to the preschool policy. This is our second reading. We provided a clean copy of the policy since we saw many of the major edits last time, but we did reformat some things and clarified some of the questions that the committee brought forward previously. Notably, we made 2 tables to clarify our enrollment priorities. The substance is not markedly different from what we discussed last time, but we're hoping this is more clear, as well as clarifying how we accept admissions after the start of the school year. What else, Kathy? We can open to discussion or whatever you want to add.
We really took the feedback from our discussion from last meeting. And at our most recent policy meeting, we met with Ms. Bremner, who very kindly offered her time to us and gave us valuable insight into what works, what doesn't work, and this is what we came up with. So we tried to make it as clear and direct as possible.
I would just add that Ms. Bremner was definitely extremely helpful, both from her perspective as a specialist and her developmental knowledge, but also from a regulatory standpoint in terms of how we regulate preschools. And we also did make some comparisons on enrollment and admission between our preschool and other town-based preschools local to the area. And we did determine that as it is currently written, our policy is actually sort of much more liberal and open than other districts, which tend to have very strict acceptance policies. So discussion or questions from the committee are more than welcome, as we're not planning on voting tonight.
I love the significant improvement of clarity.
I love tables.
The table is amazing. The getting rid of 2.9 made me so happy.
So, and on a couple of occasions, it refers to early intervention or parents. Can you guys clarify what constitutes early intervention?
Sure. I could, but let's defer
Let's
to
ask.
Molly.
So early intervention is through the Department of Public Health, and so there's agencies that perform early intervention. So REACH, Criterion, there's one in another Thomas something or other in Springfield. Yep, but it's usually REACH or Criterion for us. And so early intervention is in and of itself a system.
Could we just add the word agencies after that? Perhaps, because is that what you're saying, that
Yes,
the agencies
on
are
Table A,
parents
like,
in
yeah,
Table A and
it's the
B?
official program that is called early intervention, so we shall capitalize and add agency.
Something like that, because that was not clear. So, just to clarify, I'm gonna like
No,
idiot
we love
proof with
clarity.
my cold medicine here. If you are 2 years and 9 months without special needs that are identified, when could you start?
Everybody starts at age 3,
With or without needs?
with or without needs.
Okay.
Yes.
So if you turn 3 in the middle of the year, do you get in with and without needs?
So, Table B addresses the enrollment priorities for after the start of the school year. So, we're mid-year, and if we have a resident child who has identified needs and established IEP, they have the first priority to begin their enrollment at their 3rd birthday. If we have other openings, we do have a wait list process. So if the wait list exists, then we would, start in that order. However, without identified needs, children do need to meet the age requirements of older than 3 and younger than 5 by August 31, as this is written.
As this is written, there is no rolling enrollment for non-needs students who didn't make the age cutoff.
Right. If we suddenly had an opening and there was someone who had been eligible, with that birth date and was not admitted because we didn't have space, we could draw from the wait list, or if a family maybe moved it, there are many situations we could think of, but all children would have to meet that initial age requirement to start in the middle of the year.
So we will take them in, but they have to be 3
By August
by
31st.
August 31st.
And I think we had a very long discussion about this topic.
Poor Molly gave up a lot of time.
Yeah, and a lot of it, we can ask Ms. Bremner to sort of expound maybe upon why we settled on that, but this is entirely consistent with what other districts do in the local area, and there were other reasons you want to add to?
Well, I think one thing that Michael had pointed out was we have a hard 5 for kindergarten, and it developmentally thinking about 2.5 years or 3 years in preschool, that extra time is legislated as a need area for our learners that have disabilities. And so we want to make sure that the peer models and the work that they do has a consistent scope and sequence within a set group of students. Additionally, there's always an upheaval when a new student begins, through EI or anything else. And so expanding that further would add additional pressures to our preschool teachers. One thing that we really do want to highlight is understanding the fiscal nature of and sustainability needs of our district. We are, I think, the only one that we could find locally that will take students from outside of our borders in our preschool. So that's really a significant piece, because if they end up waitlisted in their home district, we would welcome them to see if we have a spot on our list, or in our enrollment, depending on what, where they are during the year. But so that still meets that sustainability concern of the committee, in a broader way than our sort of competitors near us, our other neighboring districts. So we wanted to keep that.
Okay. Comments?
Can we put an area code in the phone number that's listed in the last paragraph before registration and tuition?
Sure thing.
Thanks.
I love that.
I have a question for the three of you. In the tables, especially table A, does it make sense to you that is the order of priority, or do you feel like it needs
I think
numbers?
I think it should get clarified. Yeah.
So,
Because we understood it, yes. But if there is one policy in our policy deck that needs to be beyond crystal clear, this would be the one.
that's kind of what I was
Just
thinking.
to, add 1, 2, just.
First, second.
Yeah.
For
will
admission.
So, for admission in this order.
And it's lotteried in that order.
Yes, it is.
And that probably could be more expressly,
Right.
maybe within
it
the
was, You know what was,
table.
the lottery was in the text, but we can add that probably to table B.
I just want to say thank you to the policy team and to Ms. Brimner for a lot of time and effort and thought. It's appreciated.
Thank goodness for tables.
Well, it's complicated, and
But I think-
and it needs to be fair. And
I really
clarity
think
will
once
help.
we did the tables, it really just jumped out clearer for all, rather than trying to figure out correct wording and what paragraph this goes in, or this just really made it,
And it makes it a reference
Yeah.
that we can look at easily and be consistent in how we implement.
It's great. Any additional conversation from anyone on this? Okay.
so with those couple of tweaks, does the committee feel it would be ready to come back for a final reading?
I think I'm seeing
In
everyone say yes to October for a final reading.
Okay, good.
Okay. And with that, is there a motion for adjournment for our business meeting?
Can we just, before we adjourn the business meeting, because we should confirm it in public, when our next
We
meeting is.
certainly can. So we didn't make the a calendar on here, and I think continuous improvement, Mr. Wood and I will work at having a more comprehensive calendar than we had this month. Our next business meeting is October, I believe it is the 18th, but I'm going to check. So the
That's
next
right.
business meeting is Tuesday, October the 18th. It is also a 7:15 PM meeting
Okay,
here at Town Hall.
thank you. Just wanted to confirm that for everybody.
I appreciate that. So that,
Can make a motion to adjourn?
excellent.
How about a motion to recess,
To adjourn the business meeting,
to adjourn the business meeting and have a
have
short
a 5-minute recess?
Yep.
Okay. So amended.
And second that?
Great.
Jen did.
did.
So Kathy, let's,
We'll go.
all in favor?
Okay.
Aye.
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 Who seconded her motion, though?
Jen made the initial motion, I seconded.
There you go. Okay. Thank you all.